Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, looks like I once again have to go over the latest shenanigans in Downing Street as some cabinet ministers, including the Attorney General of all people, are reported to be urging Liz Truss, and I suppose Boris Johnson, to trigger Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And there seems little sign that she's willing to do so, but why would these cabinet ministers even want her to? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, really quick introduction to the fabled Article 16, but only brief because many of you will have already become familiar. In the British media, triggering Article 16 has become synonymous with cancelling bits of the Northern Ireland Protocol that Boris Johnson's government agreed to, but now want to claim that they had their fingers crossed behind their backs and so can sort of get out of. However, this is not what Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol does at all. You can read it. It's really easy. It doesn't take long, though you do have to cross-reference it with a short section in the appendices. If the UK government triggers Article 16, what actually happens is the government and the EU Commission sit down for a month of high-level talks. Well, this was happening anyway. So not much would materially change. You know, the intensity of the talks may increase. After that, what happens after the month? Not a lot, really. Because Article 16 doesn't actually allow one side to suspend parts of the protocol as being claimed by some of the Tories and their media outlets. In fact, Article 16 explicitly states on two separate occasions, and bear in mind it is not a long section, that the protocol must be left functioning. In fact, such is the disconnect between what some Tories are telling people about Article 16 and what it actually means that there are some anti-Brexit commentators actually wanting the government to trigger it so that everyone can see just how boring it would be, in the hopes that we can then move on to more productive lines of discussion. But a new report in the Sunday Telegraph yesterday claimed that Brexit Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg and Attorney General Suella Braverman have been urging Liz Truss, the minister in charge of the Northern Ireland Protocol these days, to trigger Article 16. Now, the mention of Jacob Rees-Mogg isn't terribly relevant because he's an idiot and it's got nothing to do with him. However, Braverman is the Attorney General. It's her job to offer the government legal advice. Essentially, her role is ensuring that cabinet ministers are clear about where their intended actions are on a legal basis. The assumption being to stop cabinet ministers breaking the law. Now, for her to be urging the Foreign Secretary to trigger Article 16 is curious to say the least. It has to be said, reading the report, it is not made clear exactly what interpretation of triggering Article 16 she means, given that the Telegraph is one of those papers that conflates the two inaccurately. They didn't say. In fact, the article again describes Article 16 as allowing ministers to override parts of the agreement, which it does not. Like I say, the text of the article is really clear, explicitly states no. So let's consider the two possibilities. One, if Braverman actually means suspend parts of the protocol related to trade barriers between Britain and Northern Ireland, she will be advising the government to break the law. Remember, this is not a matter of speculation. Not only has every legal expert been quite clear on this point, so too has the government. When Brandon Lewis first brought up the serious notion of circumventing the Northern Ireland Protocol with new legislation, he actually told Parliament, bold as brass, yes, this will involve breaking the law. Would you vote for it, please? Certainly the House of Lords decided no. MPs decided they're happy breaking the law, but in the Lords they went, no, we're not breaking the law. You know, the concept of the Attorney General advising the government to break the law, it should be staggering, but the problem is it's not entirely unexpected, given that it's hardly the first time she's done so. The second possibility is that she is actually merely urging Truss to trigger Article 16 in the literal sense. You know, trigger intense talks for a month and then see what happens, but obviously not a lot will happen at the end of them. You know, this maybe she just wants them to intensify talks. Wouldn't necessarily be unlawful, I guess, even though there is no lawful reason for triggering Article 16, even in the sense that the article is meant to be used. But it would also be a ridiculous suggestion. As I said before, high-level talks were taking place regularly anyway. In fact, they've slowed down as a result of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in order to focus attention on that. Liz Truss is, after all, the Foreign Secretary. And even the EU Commission would not be minded to discuss radical proposals while they have literal war in Europe to be dealing with. So neither stance really makes sense for the government to be pushing. If they breach the treaty, the EU have threatened the potential to dissolve the entire trade and cooperation agreement. And that would not be the end of the consequences, but they would be severe enough. We would have broken international law and as a result driven a hole in the peace process. Both the EU and the US have expressed their outrage at even the threat of doing this and have both been working closely together on the other nutter who has sacrificed peace on the continent for the sake of their kleptocracy. And they've shown every sign that their resolve would stand up to the test of a lunatic Conservative Party trying to wreck the Irish peace settlement. And even given that Braverman is clearly immoral and has no respect for the law, there must be a political calculation going on there to get her to put pressure on Truss by letting it be reported in public that she thinks the move should be made. The report did try and state that Truss had set out plans to trigger Article 16, as they put it, but then put them on hold as a result of the Ukraine crisis. Now, I can well believe she's been telling others that that's what she's done, but it would be news to me if she really was, because she'd been working much more cooperatively with the EU before the Russian escalation, and it seems doubtful to me that she would have thrown her political reputation in the bin by being the one responsible for turning the UK into a pariah state. Bear in mind, no matter what Truss would like to do, the decision on triggering Article 16 would ultimately come from the Prime Minister, because there'd be far-reaching effects outside of her department. And Boris Johnson would deny any responsibility for the consequences. He'd blame Truss for mishandling or poor advice. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Johnson wants Truss to do this so that he can then drop her as a potential leadership rival as well. No cabinet minister can be in any doubt that Johnson will sacrifice them without a second thought to maintain his position. Just like he went along with Sunak's budget statement, but then briefed the papers that he had other plans that the Chancellor vetoed to make it sound like, oh, poor Boris wanted to help us, but the mean Mr. Sunak stopped him, seemingly forgetting that Johnson is the boss and can dictate any policy he wants. But the urgency now seems to be related to the Stormont elections. So it's not just this article, but you keep seeing Brexiteers saying that if the issue isn't sorted out before the elections in May, then it'll be too late. And what they mean is they think Sinn Féin will become the largest party in Stormont after the elections. That would mean having a pro-protocol party as First Minister, if the Assembly formed. Brexiteers then worry that you will have a First Minister wanting the protocol to be implemented properly. Johnson has constantly deferred to Stormont's decision-making while the DUP held the top spot, even when they were breaking the law and even when Westminster sort of stepped in and said, no, we need to sort this out. But he's just completely washed his hands of it. If he does the same after the elections, then he'll get no support for any moves to derail the protocol after that. That being said, the DUP are still going to be the second largest party, so they'll still have the power to paralyse Stormont. This is where it gets a bit complicated. Like, what if the DUP refused to nominate a Deputy First Minister from the ranks? I guess the UUP could. What if they don't either? That would mean that the Assembly can't really form, because Sinn Féin can't take their position. It's a very weird situation based on a compromise. You have to have both a First Minister and a Deputy First Minister. And yes, on the DUP's part, this would be an act of pure political spite because Sinn Féin did not do the same to their nomination for First Minister. But the Assembly works on the basis of requiring both positions to be filled. And bear in mind, there are two reasons why various Brexiteers want the protocol scrapped. There are some British-based Brexiteers, and for them there's method. The protocol allows Northern Ireland to escape many of the impacts of Brexit. This is showing up in the economic data very, very clearly. It makes it impossible to claim that economic problems in the UK are caused by non-Brexit factors to anyone who has seen the data, because they'll straight away look at, well, why isn't it happening in Northern Ireland then? They want Northern Ireland to suffer just as much of the rest of the UK in order to hide the damage of Brexit. These are what I would call the calculating evil Brexiteers. Then you've got some Irish unionist Brexiteers. You do have some in Britain as well, for whom it's ideological. They do not want trade barriers between Britain and Northern Ireland. Doesn't matter to them that the protocol is actually largely beneficial because it allows free export trade with both Britain and the EU, at least for goods. I've said before, they could sell it as a good way to maintain the present union because Northern Ireland would lose that benefit if it reunified. As long as Britain remains their biggest export market, then reunification would come at an economic cost. Ironically, by trying to damage the protocol, what some of these unionists are doing is they're trying to make it economically advantageous to leave the UK. These are what I call the stupid evil Brexiteers. But whether calculating or stupid, they both want the protocol stopped, and having a Sinn Féin First Minister is not going to facilitate that. It would not surprise me if the DUP wanted to prevent the formation of the new Assembly in the hopes that Boris Johnson's government would do their dirty work for them from London. But the thing is, like I said, Boris Johnson has shown absolutely no signs of wanting to get involved. And I know there are some in the Conservative Party who would be willing to twist his arm, and Partygate is only in hibernation. So the next time there's a massive amount of pressure on his leadership, they could well have leverage. But they'd have to wait for that time. They would have to wait for him to come under pressure again. In the meantime, they wouldn't really have much leverage. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.